Hey kids, welcome back to some more science. Some more kitchen chemistry science. Because kitchen chemistry science is cool. Now you may have guessed, based on what's in front of me, what our topic is about today. Cheese. Yes, cheese is made through chemistry. Now I have a few samples here of some hard cheeses, like a Parmesan. I have a shredded mozzarella soft cheese. I have a block of Havarti. And I have a cheese stick because I'm hungry and it's delicious. As you may know, cheese comes from milk. Milk can come not just from cows, like most of us think about, but also from sheep, from goats, and even from yaks. That milk is taken and can be made into all kinds of cheeses. Soft cheeses, hard cheeses, yellow cheeses, delicious cheeses, stinky but tasty cheeses, crumbly cheeses, all sorts of cheeses. And how does that happen? Chemistry. In the simplest term, cheese is made when you add something to the milk, which causes the milk to separate into the hard parts and the liquid parts. You scoop out that hard part and turn it into all sorts of different cheeses. Now, what you add to that hard part will determine what kind of cheese it becomes. These kind of cheeses, these soft cheeses, are actually really easy to make, and our science project today is to make a soft cheese. But the hard cheeses are a lot more complicated. Some of those cheeses have to age for a long time. I think I read somewhere that the oldest cheese is 18 years old. When you make this cheese, you have to stick it in a dark basement for 18 years before it actually can be eaten. How crazy is that? But most of your hard cheeses like cheddars and such only age for a couple years, and some of them even less. The cheese that we make today, we're gonna whip it together in pretty quick time. It's a soft cheese called a farmer's cheese. So today we're going to learn about the history of cheese and why cheese is such an amazing thing. Then we're going to learn how cheeses are made. And finally, we're going to make our own farmer's cheese. And while that farmer's cheese is super yummy to eat on crackers and such, we're going to cook with it and make some farmer's cheese pancakes. So let's get started, because making cheese is cool and science is cool. We're going to start off with a movie about cheese. Let's watch.
Before empires and royalty, before pottery and writing, before metal tools and weapons, there was cheese. As early as 8000 BCE, the earliest Neolithic farmers living in the Fertile Crescent began a legacy of cheese-making, almost as old as civilization itself. The rise of agriculture led to domesticated sheep and goats, which ancient farmers harvested for milk. But when left in warm conditions for several hours, that fresh milk began to sour. Its lactic acids caused proteins to coagulate, binding into soft clumps. Upon discovering this strange transformation, the farmers drained the remaining liquid, later named whey, and found the yellowish globs could be eaten fresh as a soft, spreadable meal. These clumps, or curds, became the building blocks of cheese, which would eventually be aged, pressed, ripened, and whizzed into a diverse cornucopia of dairy delights. The discovery of cheese gave Neolithic people an enormous survival advantage. Milk was rich with essential proteins, fats, and minerals, but it also contained high quantities of lactose, a sugar which is difficult to process for many ancient and modern stomachs. Cheese, however, could provide all of milk's advantages with much less lactose. And since it could be preserved and stockpiled, these essential nutrients could be eaten throughout scarce famines and long winters. Some 7th millennium BCE pottery fragments found in Turkey still contain telltale residues of the cheese and butter they held. By the end of the Bronze Age, cheese was a standard commodity in maritime trade throughout the Eastern Mediterranean. In the densely populated city-states of Mesopotamia, cheese became a staple of culinary and religious life. Some of the earliest known writing includes administrative records of cheese quotas, listing a variety of cheeses for different rituals and populations across Mesopotamia. Records from nearby civilizations in Turkey also reference rennet. This animal byproduct, produced in the stomachs of certain mammals, can accelerate and control coagulation. Eventually, this sophisticated cheese-making tool spread around the globe, giving way to a wide variety of new, harder cheeses. And though some conservative food cultures rejected the dairy delicacy, many more embraced cheese and quickly added their own local flavors. Nomadic Mongolians used yak's milk to create hard, sun-dried wedges of buaslag. Egyptians enjoyed goat's milk cottage cheese, straining the whey with reed mats. In South Asia, milk was coagulated with a variety of food acids, such as lemon juice, vinegar, or yogurt, and then hung to dry into loaves of paneer. This soft, mild cheese could be added to curries and sauces, or simply fried as a quick vegetarian dish. The Greeks produced bricks of salty, brined feta cheese, alongside a harder variety similar to today's Pecorino Romano. This grating cheese was produced in Sicily and used in dishes all across the Mediterranean. Under Roman rule, dry cheese, or caseus aridus, became an essential ration for the nearly 500,000 soldiers guarding the vast borders of the Roman Empire. And when the Western Roman Empire collapsed, cheesemaking continued to evolve in the manners that dotted the medieval European countryside. In the hundreds of Benedictine monasteries scattered across Europe, medieval monks experimented endlessly with different types of milk, cheesemaking practices, and aging processes that led to many of today's popular cheeses. Parmesan, Roquefort, Munster, and several Swiss types were all refined and perfected by these cheese-making clergymen. In the Alps, Swiss cheesemaking was particularly successful, producing a myriad of cow's milk cheeses. By the end of the 14th century, Alpine cheese from the Gruyere region of Switzerland had become so profitable that a neighboring state invaded the Gruyere highlands to take control of the growing cheese trade. Cheese remained popular through the Renaissance, and the Industrial Revolution took production out of the monastery and into machinery. Today, the world produces roughly 22 billion kilograms of cheese a year, shipped and consumed around the globe. But 10,000 years after its invention, local farms are still following in the footsteps of their Neolithic ancestors, handcrafting one of humanity's oldest and favorite foods.
Now that you're all experts on cheese, let's make some cheese with science.
Science experiment time.
Here's the recipe. Take a screenshot, print it out.
And here are the ingredients you'll need. Some milk, whole milk is best, buttermilk, salt, cheesecloth, vinegar, a candy thermometer to take the temperature, and some string.
Okay, we're gonna make some farmer's cheese using science. Safety first. I have here a burner. I have here a saucepan, and inside this pan I have 4 cups of whole milk, really fatty milk. You need the fatty stuff, don't go skim. I also have a candy thermometer. You can see on the side of this thermometer there's an arrow that says 180 next to it. It's 180 degrees. Right now the little red mark is down here. It's not 180 degrees. As it heats up, I'm going to put this in here. The hot milk is going to touch this bulb and cause that red to go up. When it gets to that arrow, it's time to turn off and go to the next step. So I'm going to put that in there and I'm going to stir. You have to keep stirring it because otherwise it's going to burn on the bottom of your pan. Now you could do this in the microwave, but it really does help to have a thermometer because the closer it is to that 180, the better this is going to work. Okay, I'm getting there. You can see my little red line is up around 150 degrees. You see that? We're getting there. A little bit more to go. Meanwhile, over here I've prepared 2 cups of buttermilk and I have my vinegar, white vinegar with a tablespoon. Those are my other ingredients. So get those ready while you're waiting for this to do its thing. Okay, you can see from my little red line that we are at that arrow. I'm going to turn off my stove. I'm going to take out my thermometer and then I'm going to add my buttermilk. Okay, then I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of vinegar. I already put 1 in. There's the other one. And you can see what's happening after my 2 tablespoons. Something's happening. It's separating into like this white stuff that looks like cottage cheese and into this yellowy liquid. That's my curds and my whey. The chemistry in this is that the vinegar is causing the milk to curdle. It's binding with the proteins. I'm gonna leave that alone. We're gonna let it sit for like 10 minutes so that it can do its magic, and then we're gonna strain off the curds, the milk proteins. And that's what's gonna make our cheese. Okay, while that's going on, I've got myself a little colander and I've got some cheesecloth. And I'm going to line my colander with this cheesecloth. Put that in there. Make sure it hangs over the sides because we're gonna use that to gather it up when it's done. Next, I'm gonna pour a little water on this just to wet it down. Okay. Just so it sits in there nicely. And now we wait. Now that this has been sitting for 10 minutes, I'm going to ladle out this chunky cottage cheesy stuff using a slotted spoon. Kind of like little milk scrambled eggs. Kind of what it looks like, little scrambled egg pieces. Okay, that's most of it. I still have some in here I could strain it out if I want to, but I think I'm gonna go ahead. So now I'm gonna gather up my cheesecloth corners, kind of pull it together into a little bag. And it is a little warm, so I have to be careful, but I'm gonna squeeze out a lot of the liquid as best I can. And then I'm gonna take a piece of string and tie the bag shut. I'm gonna let it hang. It's gonna drip some more. So the way I do that is I make a little loop here. I'm gonna put it through a spoon and then just let it hang inside. You can see it's not touching the bottom. Let it hang from the spoon and let it continue to drip for about 30 minutes. Then we'll check back. All right, let's finish this up. I do have a beaker here filled with all the liquid that came from that milk. Remember, we had 4 cups of milk and 2 cups of buttermilk, and this was all the liquid that was in there. This is all of the curds. So to finish this up, we're gonna take our curds. We're gonna cut open the string here. And we're gonna take out what's inside. It should be nice and dry now. Okay, this is what I have. A cheese ball. Smells good. So I'm gonna crumble this up a little bit, and then I'm gonna add about a teaspoon to a teaspoon and a half of salt, depending on how much salt you like. And there you have it. I kinda wanna taste it. Let's see here. It's good. It's kind of plain. It's kind of like mozzarella cheese. So this is farmer's cheese. Now, unlike mozzarella, it doesn't melt very much, so you wouldn't use this on pizza or something, but you could certainly eat it on crackers. And that is how you make cheese with science. That is so cool and yummy. Now that you've made your own farmer's cheese, it is time to make some delicious farmer's cheese pancakes.
Cooking project time! Here's the recipe for farmer's cheese pancakes. Take a screenshot, print it out. Here are the ingredients you'll need. Flour, sugar, 3 eggs, 1/4 cup of melted butter, salt, your farmer's cheese, 3/4 cup, and optional lemon juice, or if you have a lemon, you can grate some peel off for some lemon zest.
Okay, very first thing we need to do is we need to separate some eggs. So, I don't know if you remember how to do this, but we're going to knock, knock, open the door. Knock, 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 until you get a little smile on there. And we're gonna catch it. So when you open that door, you're gonna hold the egg up like that, like a little cup, and then pass it back and forth. Don't drop the yolk and don't break it. Yeah, look at that, perfect. 1 egg yolk, and some egg whites. That's separating the egg. To do that 2 more times. Okay, I've got 3 egg yolks and I got 3 egg whites. 2 separate little cups. We're ready to move on. Okay, next we're gonna start adding some ingredients. I've put my egg whites aside and instead I've got my flour here. I'm gonna scoop out my 1/4 cup of flour. I forgot a knife, so I'll just use my spoon. 1/4 cup of flour. I need 2 tablespoons of sugar. Shucka shucka. Need a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Shucka shucka. And that's my dry ingredients. So before I add my wet ingredients, I'm gonna just use my little whisk here. Mix it up a little bit. Okay, next I'm gonna need another little bowl here so I can put in my 3/4 cup of my farmer's cheese that I just made, or I made less than 5 or 6 days ago. If it's in there too long, it's gonna go bad. You can use cottage cheese too, but it's gonna be a lot wetter, which I don't suppose is too bad. All right, I'm gonna add my butter to that, and I'm gonna add my 3 egg yolks. Here you can add some lemon zest. Now I don't have lemon zest. Lemon zest is when you peel a little bit of the skin off a lemon. It gives it a nice little tangy flavor. You could probably use an orange if you wanted to. I don't have either one, but I do have a little bit of lemon juice, and I'm just gonna drip in a little bit of that. Give it a nice little tang. And next I'm just gonna mix this up before I add it to that. Mash it up. Okay, next we're gonna add the cheesy stuff to the flour. Now you might notice, or maybe you haven't, there's no leavening agents in this. Guess you don't always need them. I think the cheese is gonna be what's gonna give it some height. This kind of cheese doesn't melt very much. Unlike a lot of really fatty cheeses that will melt when you put them in the heat, this kind of pancake, the cheese, doesn't really melt. So it's gonna get its height from the cheese instead. Mix, 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 mix. Mash, 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 mash. It's pretty thick at this point. There aren't too many liquids in this, so it's gonna be a very thick, cheesy, floury mess. Stir, stir, stir. Let's move on. Our next step is to go back to these egg whites, put them in another bowl, a clean bowl. Then we're gonna use an electric mixer, and you need an electric mixer, to beat them until they're fluffy, nice fluffy peaks. I've been beating these on high for about a minute. You can see the bubbles are starting, but no peaks yet. It's still pretty goopy. So put that mixer right back on high and keep on going. Well, it's turning white, but it's still not making a peak. Can you see that when I pull that up, that part that comes up, that drippy part just goes right back in there? As soon as I do this and it stands up, then it's ready. Okay. See, now you can see when I pull that batter up, it stays. That's called making peaks. See, doo-doo-doo. Looks like whipped cream, but it's not. It's just egg whites. So those are ready. Okay, the next step is to put the egg whites into our mixture there and just fold it over. Now this works better if it's more liquidy. I think my butter was already starting to get hard. Just gentle. Don't give it a cranky stir because that's gonna crush your egg whites. Just kind of scoop and stir. This is also gonna make it very fluffy. Because remember, we don't have any leavening agents in here. This recipe does not call for any. So I'm just kind of chopping that up there, poking at it. If yours is more liquidy than mine, then you're good to go. I think when I made my cheese, I made it very dry because I like dry cheese. So it doesn't make my cracker soggy, but a wetter cheese would probably be a little more liquidy. This is looking good. It's kind of pretty too. It kind of looks like Venus, the clouds of Venus. Okay, I think we're ready to cook these. Okay, I got a pan here, looks pretty hot. I'm gonna scoop out some pancake batter and plop it on there. Okay, so these are ready to flip when they're getting kind of dry on the top. They're not gonna bubble the way traditional pancakes do because they don't have any baking powder in them. But when they start to get a little bit dry on the top, there's some bubbles, but that's, you can kind of peek at them. You'll see that they're starting to get brown. They smell good. All right, I've let these cook about, I don't know, about 2 minutes per side. They're not too squishy anymore. They look pretty done. Let's take them off, let them cool down. We can eat them. Alrighty, let's see what we got here. Well, they look good. Ooh, they smell really good. Let's give them a try. It's cheesy. You can actually like see little pieces of farmer's cheese in there. Like I stated, the farmer's cheese doesn't really melt. Between the butter and the farmer's cheese, this is a very tasty pancake. See the cheese in there? I know a lot of people like to put syrup on their pancakes, but I think this would be better with like jelly. Some kind of fruit, because the cheese and the fruit would be very good together. Anyway, I give this a thumbs up. Well, that's all I have this week on cheeses and farmer's cheese pancakes. It's a pretty delicious unit, don't you think? Hope you enjoyed it. Remember, cheese is cool and science is cool.